last CFAC meeting this year. And we've been up to quite a bit since we were together in April. So our board of directors had a conversation in May at their board annual retreat, and they discussed the major projects and your feedback from the April session. And they looked at what a first phase of a high school would entail and had a conversation, and the ensuing aspect of that was go forth. And we want your team to think about what that would be, those 300 student classrooms in the world of STEM and sciences. So your feedback has been shaping us all along. With regard to the elementaries, we convened an elementary design committee, and they've been looking at various sites. So they spent a full day out of the classroom and toured several elementaries, been weighing pros and cons, and you're going to see the outcome of all of that work since the last time we were together. So you're going to see some designs, have a chance to give us some feedback on our top couple of elementary designs, and see what a future Orting High School would look like all together on one campus, which is really cool. So we will envision taking your feedback from tonight and doing some final thinking that will come to that design committee. And we probably would have room for a few touch bases in the fall. We know we need to think through our elementary boundaries of what a two-school, K-5 school boundary system would look like. And we contracted with a demographer to help us pinpoint enrollment growth by neighborhood. So we can really look to see if we made this move today, what would that look like 4 years from now, 10 years from now, and be thoughtful about that. So we're starting gathering information, so we think we'll have future conversations with you in that regard. And then this architect committee is doing work over the summer based on your feedback and that of the design committee to get us closer and ready for what would be ultimately a bond in February 2023. So we think there's going to be some things to talk about in the fall, but I am excited for you to see the vision of what has even transpired from 2 months ago till now. They've been very hard at work, and we're excited to show you some great ideas and get your thoughts to help us move forward. So again, working us through this process, we have NAC, that's our architect, and Matt Rumbaugh is our principal architect, and we have other architects joining us. Brian's back, and you'll meet that team in a little bit. And Liz Leroy is our owner's rep, and she's been keeping us on track with regard to permits and wetlands and traffic mitigation, all those things that are necessary to keep us on track for a 4-year from today opening a new elementary school. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Matt and to tell you a little bit about what he's been up to, and you'll see some future possible designs.
All right, excellent. Let's try to hopefully make this a fun night. You just heard a good bit about the agenda for tonight. One of the things I do want to highlight is around here you'll see some easels and some boards that are turned backwards because we have some top secret things we want to reveal to you tonight. What we're going to be doing is I'm going to run through some of these design ideas and a little bit of history on what's happened over the last couple of months. I'm going to do that quickly because the intent is for you to have some more time to look at sort of the detail of these different ideas. So we're going to break into groups and have our different groups at these different stations. I'm going to set a little timer and I'm going to say switch, and you're going to move to the next station so that we can each see everything and we can have some small group discussions while we're doing that. And that'll help each of us learn a bit more about your thoughts. And then we'll wrap up after we do that. I think last time we highlighted a number of the things we've been doing during the spring of 2023. Mostly I think we've highlighted all of these. Anything new on here? I will talk a minute about the new elementary school site here. But we also want to talk a bit about the long-range planning that's happening and connecting with the developers and trying to make sure that we're securing some future school sites. So that work has been ongoing over the last couple months. We have made some still working? Nope. Wondering if I don't know. All right, thanks. Tech help. So we have identified 2 sites in the Tahale area for a future elementary school and middle school. And we're currently working with the developers there to kind of double check the suitability of these sites and kind of move us forward in our negotiations. So that is ongoing and we're making good progress. We're also working in the Sunrise Daybreak area as well to be looking at future school sites there. So that work is ongoing. And on our new site, right next door here, you've probably seen some drill rigs out there over the last couple weeks. So they've been doing the geotechnical investigation. You may have seen that they've been doing traffic counts. Talked earlier about the permitting work that's going on, and doing that traffic analysis is a key part of making sure our permitting process can go quickly and smoothly. So with that, we're going to jump in real quick and start talking about the new elementary school. As Superintendent Hatzenbeller mentioned, we have been working with the committee that consists of folks from both OPS and PTR to work through a number of different design ideas, get some of the guiding principles for what's really important in this new school design, and then test a number of options. And right now what we want to share with you are sort of what we're calling the 2 finalist options, and we want to test those with each of you as well tonight. This has been our schedule, so we've had 5 workshops so far. Our 6th workshop is going to be this coming Friday, so the feedback you give us tonight will be influential in that final meeting. For those of you who have not stood on the corner here, it really is just an amazing place, an amazing site. It's going to be a great elementary school. And of course, one of the key features is we want to really take advantage of the mountain view and the natural environment that's there. Speaking of the natural environment, I think we talked before about some of the wetlands that were identified on site. This is a photo of one of them. You can't really see, but there actually is water in here, and it has the potential to be an amenity for us as well. So it is a constraint, but we're trying to make it become an amenity. We looked at some other schools that are doing this as well. This is one of them in Snohomish that has a wetland on site, and from their building they get to experience that wetland, and it can become part of the teaching and learning environment. And you get a sense of sort of the setting of this school, that we imagine that the setting of your school could be something similar to this. And then some of the key words that were identified by the committee, the feeling that the committee was looking for us to have when entering the school, are summarized by these words up here and some of these images that you see on the screen. I'm not going to run through them all. We have them printed over here. You can study them a little more closely, but I think these are really things that will clearly make for an inspiring educational environment. And we've been doing some of the practical things too. We have to make sure we have the right spaces, the spaces are the right size, we have the right number of students can use those spaces. So we've been reviewing those and testing those with the educators that we're meeting with as well. And we're also doing some design ideas together. And so we've been doing some explorations together with the goal of really making sure that this new elementary is the right fit for you. And as I mentioned, what you're going to see tonight are the 2 finalist options. Prior to this, we have been talking through prior iterations and some other options that dropped away. And we've been doing that through a pro and con exercise of looking at different things. So the first option we're going to talk to you about what we call courtyard commons. So the idea here with this is to come up with a building design that allows that natural feel of your site become really integral to the experience and the educational opportunities at the school. This was a school in Puyallup that we were inspired by that had a really nice kind of created natural environment in between their classroom wings. And we want to do this, but we want to do it even better. Quick orientation as we look at the site plan. The red is the outline of the portion of the new property that we've purchased that will be dedicated to the elementary school. Over here, and you can see this more clearly on the printouts when we walk around. This is the wetland area. What we're proposing is a new access point that's going to be primarily from the new roundabout that is planned at White Hawk Boulevard. So that'll become the main access, and Rocky Road can become the secondary access. So the good thing is that gives us a lot of queuing space off the highway, and it also then allows us a way to get onto the site without having to try to make a left-hand turn off the highway, which, as you know, can be difficult many times a day. So we have a parent drop-off loop, come around, we have the buses that load off the playground area, and then the building in the middle that has this central space in the middle of it. Again, I'm not going to go through all the details now because we're going to jump into it. So you can later in just a minute. So you can see here that the red arrow represents the main entry. You have kind of a public zone here that has your administration, cafeteria, commons, gymnasium, and an academic zone with these two wings that have a courtyard in the middle. You'll notice that one of the wings has 2 grade levels together, the other 1 grade level. Similarly, on the second floor, there's 2 grade levels together, 4th and 5th, with another grade level on the opposite wing. One of the key features, sorry about that, I hit the wrong button. One of the key features here is going to be really celebrating the library space within the school. You can see it's at the end of the wing. It's going to have that prime view out across the wetlands and to the mountain. So it's intended to be this place that is really celebrated within the school. And these are just a couple quick vignettes intended just to capture a little bit of the character of how it might feel as you enter, not to capture the exact design. So as you see here, there's a kind of overhang at the front entry. You have some nice covered area, good view. You can see through in here to the cafeteria, gymnasium for after hours use. And then inside you can get a sense here of how this interior space could really be quite dynamic. You have a second floor hallway space that connects you to that library and that view to the mountain. And then from inside you can get a sense of how this whole space is really well connected. I'm going to move to the next idea, and I know I'm moving super fast, but that's to just allow us the maximum amount of time to be together. This idea here is a little bit different in that it's still trying to have a strong connection with your natural environment, but doing it in a little bit of a different way. Instead of a larger singular kind of courtyard space, this building has more of fingers that kind of reach out into the landscape, and each of those fingers then can have a little bit of a smaller scale experience on the site and when you're inside the building. Trying to capture sort of the experience that's captured here in this school. The overall arrangement on the site is actually pretty similar, where you have a parent drop-off loop here, the building kind of in the middle, and the playground sort of in the north area towards Rocky Road, with the buses loading and unloading along the playground. So making good separation of the parents and the bus drop-off. As you start to look at the building, you can start to see how this shape allows for main entry, administration area, cafeteria, gymnasium space right up front, easy access for the public when it's not school hours, and then a series of grade level classroom wings here that, as I say, kind of have this little finger-like expression into the landscape. And then up at the top, kind of linking all of those classroom wings is the library, so that each of those classroom communities can easily get to that, and again, the library does end up having that commanding view, and it becomes a really special space within the school. You get a little bit of a sense here of kind of as you're coming from the parent drop-off loop, coming into the building, you have kind of this large overhang, kind of welcome you into the building, and some nice view into that common space. And of course, we want to always be able to highlight that experience of nature in the mountain inside the building. And looking to be able to do that both at larger scales and smaller scales. Okay, take a breath. We're going to switch gears, and then we're going to break into our group. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the high school here for just a minute. Hopefully that's all right. And we're going to talk about 2 different ideas that we're exploring for ways to develop the master plan. Neither of these are finalized or have all the details worked out, but they start to give a sense of 2 different approaches for how the new high school might be laid out on the property. Some of the things that you covered before are just the need. There's lots of different needs, and you guys have helped us already identify those. Some of the things we showed this last time, but we kind of have just made this into a pie chart, because who doesn't like a pie chart, to kind of show that there's a lot of building that we need to build over the years. And that's why we're looking at phasing in the construction, so that you can see here that a pretty big percentage of your total area needs to be new construction. And so with that, we need to be really thoughtful about getting us to our end result, where you have a comprehensive, rebuild Orting High School. Obviously, you guys have helped us identify that option A of adding a 300 student capacity addition of classrooms, CTE, gym, wrestling is really the right approach for the first phase at Orting High School because it addresses a lot of different needs at once. And so we've been moving forward with these different options based on that. I'm going to run through these real quickly. You're familiar with the aerial photo. For us, it was really helpful to just get a sense of when these different buildings were built, so you can start to see that here, the different ages. Just really quickly, one of the things that you don't get to experience as much is that view of Rainier. We'd like to be able to enhance that as we continue to redevelop the site. And then there's a couple of buildings that we, as we were studying things, identified as likely candidates for demolition. One is what we already all know, which is the old wrestling gym. But the other one is the 8 classroom building kind of in the middle that was originally intended for elementary school. It's really a building that probably in the long run just isn't worth trying to renovate. So that's why it's a good candidate for demolition. And then of course the newer pieces in blue, definitely want to keep those. The gym here is not newer, but it is a good candidate for renovation, so it makes sense to keep it. And then the question mark still, wow. The question mark still is the purple building, that curving building. We're currently studying that for suitability for renovation. There's pros and cons there, so that still needs some more thought behind it. And then of course, where can you put your first phase of construction? Where there's no building now is really the answer for the most part, except maybe the wrestling gym. So with that, we kind of, to me, this was really helpful to see the high school as a little bit more of a blank slate, where you just see these existing pieces that we know we're going to keep, and then start to think, how can we build over time something new and something really special for the high school? So with that, we kind of came up with 2 different ideas. One is called Campus Green. This idea is really to, kind of like it says here, to create an environment here inside these new buildings that has a feel a bit of a college campus green, where you're walking between the buildings, but it's all within a secured area, and you have a really special kind of central building here in orange. So that might be the new cafeteria or some special space like that. So that the student experience is really enhanced, and we're getting the all of the new program that we need. So the first phase would be, of course, the new athletic facilities here, gym, wrestling area, locker rooms, and some new academic space, kind of grouped along the corner. As we come to the next phase, you start to see the next chunk come in. Maybe this is the big cafeteria. Maybe we have a new administration area coming in, more classrooms, starting to kind of create a new center to the campus over here. And then we come in and we have a third piece which allows us to connect in with the existing and create this really kind of nice front all along the highway here. And then at the end, we can start to complete this and kind of create more of a completed campus edge. And then just quickly looking at a couple different ways of trying to address circulation and parking. This is not worked out right now, so I feel like there's still a lot more thinking to be done to really resolve this, because that's a key challenge that we have at the high school. We found it helpful to start to just extrude these boxes into 3 dimensions, so you can start to get a sense of how the new pieces start to play in with the old. And this, I have 3 different views for each phase. So you'll see here, if I can just click a single time, up at the very top, it says phase 1. So this is looking from the corner. You can see in this case the new gymnasium, the new athletic facilities, and the new academic piece that's next to your existing athletic facilities. You can see that same thing from the other angle here, and you can recognize the building we're in here and the curving building, OPS over here in the district office. And then lastly, from this other corner where the district office is in the foreground, OPS, and then the new high school here. So I'm going to run through these same images for each of the phases. So phase 2, start to see this from multiple angles and how the campus kind of reorients itself. can see that again from the other angle, and you can see certain buildings are starting to disappear. We don't have the exact timing on all of those yet, but you can start to see how that shapes up. As we get to phase 3, you start to have that more continuous front along the highway. You can see that from different angles. And you can see again how these spaces are starting to be created between this building. You get some really nice synergy there. And then again, as we add the final phase, you start to help to complete those edges even more. Okay, second option we're calling the campus connector. So this is a little bit different. So this is trying to say, is there a way to connect all these different buildings with a single building so that you can basically walk inside eventually, from one building to the next to the next. And it does that in a way where, again, the first phase, very, very similar. And this one, we think it very well might be necessary to move the administration and just reorient the entry here, but that's still open for discussion. And then you can start to see how we continue to build onto that with our new addition. You can see this kind of angled piece is really starting to suggest that some of those common larger spaces like a new cafeteria, that kind of thing, are in that space that become part of the connector. Maybe some of the other special programs of the school are also in that connector to help draw you along as you move through the school. As you move into the next phase, you can start to see how we continue to build towards where we are sitting today. And then finally, we have the potential to even connect in if we want. You'll notice in these, we're kind of showing a new building in green, which could be a new theater on top of this curving building, kind of a placeholder for now until we do our final assessment of that curving building. And again, this is looking at that circulation. This is exploring the idea maybe we create a bus loop along the backside to be able to get buses a little bit farther off the highway and more separated from the automobile traffic. Still more study to be done there. Again, you can start to see this in 3 dimensions here as we look at it from different angles. Phase 2, you can see now there's quite a density of buildings in this area. Again, recentering. You can start to see how some of those common areas then are oriented towards the mountain. And as we continue to build onto that, different angles, and there we are when we're all said and done, and we have a singular connected building in the end. And from some other angles. Okay, it's time to get up and walk. So in the back, you'll see a couple architects here, Brian and Nikisa, and Liz is going to be at one of these groups, and I'll be at another one. We're going to have 4 groups. We have 2 in the back for the 2 high school options. And then we have over here on the right-hand side the 2 elementary school options. What I'm hoping is you can each sort of just pick an option to start with and try to keep the groups relatively equal sizes. I'm guessing that means 8 or 10 people per group. Let's chat. It is now 6:25. So I'll watch the clock and maybe 5-7 minutes, I'm going to ask us to switch and just rotate around the room so that you can have a chance of having a discussion at each of these amongst yourselves and with the architects who are at the tables. Does that make sense? And then we'll come back and we want to share some thoughts together afterwards. All right, thanks. If I can just get everyone's attention for just a couple more minutes, we will do our best to get you out of here right at 7:30. I really wish I could have been in the conversations at each of these groups because I really enjoyed the conversations we had in my group. So I'm wondering if we could just spend a couple minutes, and if a handful of you would be willing to share your observations either about the high school, the elementary, everything as a whole, whatever you feel like you would really like to share with the group about maybe thoughts and or conclusions that are coming to you after spending some time with these different ideas. Anyone here willing to be brave enough to share some of their thoughts. Okay, we'll start with
I was on the elementary school with Booker Cons, and some of the feedback that I got from that, they always people felt it was calming, and that it was easy to navigate or easy for circulation. Also, the admin seemed very central, so that it was very visible to see all aspects, the commons and the outdoor play area, and the parking, and then the drop-off. Probably don't talk with the mic.
let's see, is that working better?
We'll add it in Performing Arts Center.
Okay, I think we're back. So, any other thoughts someone wants to share? Otherwise, I can share a little bit about what was discussed in my group over here at the high school. Or actually, Nikisa, would you share just a couple thoughts that came up in your group?
So I was in the creative village, and a lot of people commented that the angles and the shape kind of confused them in terms of like floor plan, and reminds them the middle school. And then we talked about how movement and flow is different in middle school and elementary school, which in elementary school there's like less movement, so having separate pods in this option, people like that. And the library got a lot of compliment for the view. There was a discussion on the play field that they're thinking how the community gonna use it and the shape of it. Yeah, I guess that's it. Brian?
I was back with the campus reading group, and some of the things that people appreciate about that option were finding that the core proposition with the idea that there is this enclosed, private, outdoor space has a lot of value. People can really see that this is something that they're going to use, the school would use. Also liking that as the different phases of the building are finished, that those portions of the building are complete, that those stand alone, and that the building, in a sense, is kind of is done after every phase and just becomes more done over time. And then things that they wanted us to work on, kind of go back and take another look at, were kind of really looking at where the administration and the arrival is into the building, so that it's really clear to visitors, and that it's in a place that's very secure and has this point of control on the front of the building, that public edge along the highway. And then also, of course, making sure that there are good connections in between the buildings so that kids are invited to walk from building to building and really take advantage of that campus feeling of that design.
And I will just add on to that, some of those same comments came up on the other version of the high school, the Commons Connector. Same thing, there was, I'd say, quite a bit of people really appreciated the centralizing of the main entry as part of that kind of early phase, so it has a really nice kind of public front. There was this discussion, and I think some people really said, I really like the idea of students being able to walk inside the building from building to building. But you mentioned, Brian, the idea of, well, what if you end up stopping after phase 2 and you have a bit more of a gap before phase 3? What's the experience in this building if we're in that situation? So I think thinking through those scenarios a little bit more is also something that makes a lot of sense. The other thing that came up with some of our group conversations was a lot about vehicular circulation and thinking about the buses and thinking a little bit more about cars and student parking. And trying to really come up with maybe a little bit better solution. There's some questions with the way we were showing the buses on the Commons Connector. Can you really get out of the buses, through the neighborhood? Do we really need to think that through a bit more? So some of those things will be good next steps for us. Before I move on to some other next steps, I just want to open the floor up. Is there anything else that you think is really great you want to share with the rest of your group? Yeah.
I really liked knowing that the high school was going to be built in 3 phases. I was always kind of worried, how do we sell this? And in the Campus Green version, it really seemed like even in phase 2, it's like we're getting a new high school. You can see it there. And so I really liked that about that version.
That's great. That's great feedback. Anything else from anyone else here?
One of the things I really liked about the courtyard was that it's very different than our current elementary, where that one is, well, it's not our current elementary. They're very different styles. So not have 2 elementaries that are very similar in layout, have 2 very different ones. And I really like the admin placement on there.
Okay. That's good. Great.
Anyone else?
Well, that seems loud. Since I currently work here as a secretary, I like the the common connector. I like that. Because right now, as we said, we have so many different buildings, and it just doesn't feel like we're all whole one student body. And I like the fact that all the buildings would be connected in one area so that kids could be together as a student body and not disjointed and out. I don't know, it's kind of crazy here because we are disjointed. I just really like that idea. I like that everybody would be under a common roof.
Great.
One thing that we were talking about with a common connector is using our existing buildings still has the potential to have a really long passing period that's been problematic for here at the high school. But then, at least for me as I look closer, when we're adding all of those classrooms in the middle, passing period won't be such an issue because the kids will be more central and it kind of played out really nicely. And I also really liked that connecting piece where we could be together in the middle. And I'm just imagining really cool spaces for the students to talk and sit and work on a project together and to even just see our staff. And so it was just great.
Something that
Oh, I broke it.
low battery. Gosh, who runs something we ran into here, having separate buildings, even if they were 4 beautiful full buildings, is when we have students who are in wheelchairs that have different access issues, having them access all the different places. So if you want to go to PE and then you want to go to Performing Arts Center, having to go outside in the rain, just for some of our different populations, isn't always the most respectful travel piece. So for that, I like all under one roof. You can go to all different places and have clean accessibility. I know there's different ways to deal with accessibility, but they require a lot of exterior roofs just for that purpose.
Great. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to talk for just a minute about some next steps. Some of the next steps are going to be with the high school master planning. We're going to spend a little more time this summer trying to meet with some additional groups at the district and with the high school and be able to try to solve a little bit more clearly and completely some of the issues that you all brought up tonight. So we're going to be working on that and be able to come back in the fall and try to have something that we feel is really solid. And as I shared with some of you, I'm I'm sharing this because it's sort of like a personal challenge to myself. In my ideal world, the holy grail is that if we can do phase 1 and we can then in phase 2 build either one of these, that would be fantastic because it gives you the most flexibility. So that's what we are charging ourselves with, is coming up with that. So I've now said it publicly, which is kind of scary, but that's what we're going to shoot for. The other thing in terms of the elementary school, so we're meeting with the elementary school committee on Friday, and our goal with that group is to share the feedback that we've received from you tonight, as well as feedback that we received from the staff on last week on Thursday and Friday at PTR and OPS. We had these drawings up in the staff room, and we had some good conversations with staff throughout the day as they came in on their prep period or lunch period and chatted with us. So we'll be sharing that with the committee as well, and then the committee will be making their recommendation for which of these 2 options we should move forward with. Then we'll be spending some additional time during the summer developing those with the intent of getting towards 2 things. 1, refining our cost estimating so that we can be really confident moving into the fall as the school board has kind of the final information they need to be able to finalize bond measure in the fall. And then also to be able to, as Liz mentioned earlier, to set ourselves up for our permitting, especially our wetland permitting, which is a long time period, so we want to get that moving forward. So those will be kind of key things over the summer for the elementary school and the high school. And then some additional next steps on here. I've hit a couple of these already. I think before the end of the year, we're going to be having an email correspondence go out to district families to be sharing what's been going on here as part of this group and part of the capital facilities planning that's been going on. And then we're going to be meeting with additional district staff and high school staff as much as we can during the summertime. And then in the fall, we're going to want to reconvene this group again in the fall, share with you what we've been doing, and get some additional kind of feedback from you all. And as Superintendent Hansenmiller mentioned, we're going to also be talking about the K through 5, boundaries and kind of what we're learning, and get some feedback on that. And then, of course, as we're moving towards the bond in February, we're going to want to be talking to you about, get some additional ideas and some additional outreach opportunities in the fall. So with that, maybe I'll pass it to you, and you can just close us out.
Liz, anything to say? Board, anything you'd like to say? What I would love to say, just wrapping up this year, if you think about 9 meetings, is all we've had in 1 calendar year, and think about where we started, without a clear plan, without land to move forward, unsure about many different aspects, and to be closing in this June with a vision and a plan to move forward, I couldn't just be more proud of the work that you've done as a committee. That thinking, I hope you can see that each step we give some input, and then something happens, and some input, and something happens. What I'm excited about tonight, this input, something really cool is going to happen from that input. So we'll be able to lock in on a design, get some work, come back, and we're very excited to take some next steps. From your input, different stakeholders we need to get to the table: food service, facilities, maintenance, safety, security. So there's a lot of different, so we're looking at kind of the what, but there's a lot of things that need to go into that thinking and planning wise, so we don't have a misstep. So that's some of the additional stakeholders after we take this input and say, okay, here's the thing. Then we have some more work to do to flesh that out and do an even deeper dive. So we're excited to share that with you sometime in the fall. The last thing I would say is, as we're talking about Orting Elementary and what that looks like, we're not just talking about that school. If you recall, the board's vision was that there's parity amongst our elementary schools. So when you get down the road and we think about safety and security and furniture and communication, all those pieces, the vision is really we bring both of those schools along, so there's not a have or have not, that we have that standard of care that becomes uniform across our district. So as we get deeper dive into some of these pieces, the vision really is that PTR, Orting Elementary, coming alongside, and we have parity as much as we can. So thank you for coming here. I'm very excited about what the future holds for the Orting School District, and your feedback has been most appreciative. We really thank you for your time tonight. Have a good night.